Hey, shalom, shalom, Hakim. First and foremost, I want to say, call Allah, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, Ba'ashem, Ba'dash. I send double honors to the apostles and the elders of the millstone. I send much peace, love, and salutations to you, Hakim, out there pushing the word of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shah, and sincerity and truth. This brother, Yahweh. And this is just going to be another story of victory. I believe it's number 5. And today I want to go over the story of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a story that you find in the Apocrypha, in the book of Maccabees. And it's during the time of Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth, when he was ruling. Antiochus the fourth Epiphanes, and he was a very, very cruel ruler, especially to our people. And at this time, you had the Maccabee brothers stand up and fight against Antiochus and his armies and his generals. So at that time, basically Antiochus sacked the temple, destroyed it, and set up idols. And it's just a really good story of us having victory over the Edomites. So I'm going to read about it. I'm going to read a little bit of the backstory, and then we're going to get the actual account in First Maccabees and just read through it. Okay? So also, to let you know that this is a viable and something that the Israelites followed, you actually can read briefly here in the book of John, 10th chapter, 22nd verse. It says, and it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, right? At Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter, because that's the feast of dedication. The word Hanukkah goes back to the word dedication. And as you can see, Yahweh Shah is even present at this thing, okay? So let's get some of the backstory. This is on Britannica.com. It says Hanukkah commemorates the Maccabean victories over the forces of the Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes, and the rededication of the temple in Kislev, the 25th of Kislev, 164 BCE, which Kislev is the 9th month of the year. We go by moons, a lunar calendar, the Hebrews. It says, led by Mattathias and his son Judas Maccabeus. The Maccabees were the first Jews who fought to defend their religious beliefs rather than their lives. According to First Maccabees, a text of the Apocrypha, Antiochus had invaded Judea, tried to Hellenize the Jews, and desecrated the Second Temple in Jerusalem. Following the Jewish victory in a 3-year struggle against Antiochus, Judas ordered the cleansing and restoration of the temple. After it was purified, a new altar was installed and dedicated on Kislev, the 25th Kislev. Judas then proclaimed that the dedication of the restored temple should be celebrated every year for 8 days, beginning on that date. In 2nd Maccabees, the celebration is compared to the festival of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, or Feast of Booths, which the Jews were unable to celebrate because of the invasion of Antiochus. Hanukkah therefore emerged as the celebration of the dedication, as the word itself suggests. Okay, so now let's go over to First Maccabees and read about this account. Now I'm going to read it in the GNT. Okay, so you can also go to, this is BibleGateway.com that I'm reading from. If you want to read it in the KJV version, I use KingJamesBibleOnline.org. Okay, but I'm going to read it in the GNT version because this is a really cool story, and we're just going to read through it. All right. First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 1. I'm gonna say Gorgias took 5,000 infantry and 1,000 of his most experienced cavalry and left camp by night with men from the fort in Jerusalem as his guides. He had planned to make a surprise attack on the Jewish army, but Judas learned of the plan and moved out with his men to attack the king's army at Emmaus, while Gorgias and his troops were still away from the camp. When Gorgias and his army reached Judas's camp that night, they found no one there. They thought Judas and his men were trying to escape, so they started looking for them in the mountains. At dawn, Judas appeared in the plain with 3,000 men, not all of them as well armed as they would have liked. They saw a huge Gentile army of experienced troops wearing armor and protected by cavalry, right? But Judas said to his men, "Don't worry about the size of their army, and don't be frightened when they attack. Remember how our ancestors were saved at the Red Sea when the king of Egypt was pursuing them with his army. Now let us ask the Lord to have mercy on us. Let us pray that he will honor his covenant with our ancestors and crush this army when we attack today. When all the Gentiles will know that Israel has a God who rescues and saves them." All right? When the Gentiles saw Judas and his men preparing for battle, they moved out of their camp to fight. Then Judas and his men sounded their trumpets and attacked. The Gentiles broke ranks and fled into the plain, but all the stragglers were killed. The Israelites pursued the enemy as far as Gezer, the plains of Idumea, and the towns of Azotus and Jamnia. Altogether, they killed about 3,000 of the enemy. When Judas and his army came back from the pursuit, he said to his men, "Don't be greedy for loot. Gorgias and his army are nearby in the mountains, so there is still heavy fighting ahead of us. We must stand firm and fight. After that, you can safely take all the loot you want." Judas was just finishing his speech when an enemy patrol on a scouting mission looked down from the mountain and saw that their army had been put to flight. They could tell from the smoke that their camp was burning. When they saw all this, they were terrified, and when they also saw that Judas's army was in the plain ready for battle, they all fled to Philistia. Then Judas returned to loot the enemy camp. He took large amounts of gold and silver, blue and purple cloth, and other rich plunder. All right, so they was able to stack up, right? When the Jews came back to their own camp, they sang a hymn. "The Lord is worthy of praise. His mercy endures forever." That day brought a great victory to the people of Israel. Verse 26 says, "The Gentile troops that escaped went to Lysias and reported all that had happened." So that scouting group went back and told this general. Okay. Then when Lysias heard that his troops had lost the battle, he was shocked and disappointed that Israel had not been defeated as the king had commanded. In the following year, Lysias gathered an army of 60,000 well-trained infantry and 5,000 cavalry, intending to conquer the Jews. They marched into Idumea and camped at Gezer. Judas came to meet them with 10,000 men. So they're outranked 6-1, even more than that. Right? When Judas saw how strong the enemy army was, he prayed, "We will praise you, Savior of Israel. You broke the attack of the giant by the hand of your servant David, and you let Saul's son Jonathan and the young man who carried his weapons defeat the entire Philistine army. Now in the same way, let your people Israel defeat our enemy. Put them to shame, in spite of all their confidence in their infantry and cavalry. Make them afraid. Let their bold strength melt away. Let them tremble at the prospect of defeat. We love and worship you, Yahweh, so let us kill our enemies, that we may then sing your praises." The battle began, and in the hand-to-hand fighting, about 5,000 of Lysias' men were killed. Then, when Lysias saw that his army was being defeated, and when he saw the reckless courage of Judas and his men, who showed that they were ready to live or die with honor, he returned to Antioch, where he recruited some mercenaries and planned to return to Judea later with a much larger army. Verse 36, Judas and his brothers said, "Now that our enemies have been defeated, let's go to Jerusalem to purify the temple and rededicate it." So the whole army was assembled and went up to Mount Zion. There they found the temple abandoned, the altar profaned, the gates burned down, the courtyards grown up in the forest of weeds, and the priests' rooms torn down. In their sorrow, they tore their clothes, they rent their clothes, cried loudly, threw ashes on their head, and fell face down on the ground. When the signal was given on the trumpets, everyone cried out to the Lord. Then Judas ordered some of his soldiers to attack the men in the fort while he purified the temple. He chose some priests who were qualified and who were devoted to the law. They purified the temple and took the stones that had been defiled and put them in an unclean place. They discussed what should be done with the altar of burning offerings, which had been desecrated by the Gentiles, and decided to tear it down, so that it would not stand there as a monument to their shame. So they tore down the altar and put the stones in a suitable place in the temple hill, where they were to be kept until a prophet should appear and decide what to do with them. Then they took uncut stones, as the law of Moses required, and built a new altar like the old one. They repaired the temple inside and out, and dedicated its courtyards. They made new utensils of worship and brought the lampstand, the altar of incense, and the table for the bread unto the temple. They burned incense on the altar and lit the lamps on the lampstand, and there was light in the temple. They placed the loaves of bread on the table, hung the curtains, and completed all the work. The 25th day of the 9th month, the month of Kislev, is the year in the year 148, was the anniversary of the day the Gentiles had desecrated the altar. On that day, a sacrifice was offered on the new altar in accordance with the law of Moses. The new altar was dedicated, and hymns were sung to the accompaniment of harps, lutes, and cymbals. All the people bowed down with their faces to the ground and worshiped and praised Yahweh Shem Shah for giving them victory. For 8 days they celebrated the rededication of the altar. With great joy, they brought burnt offerings and offered friendship offerings and thank offerings. They decorated the front of the temple with gold crowns and shields, rebuilt the gates and the priest rooms, and put doors on them. Now the Jews had removed the shame which the Gentiles had brought. They held a great celebration. Then Judas and his brothers and the entire community of Israel decreed that the rededication of the altar should be celebrated with a festival of joy and gladness, and at the same time each year, beginning on the 25th of the month of Kislev and lasting for 8 days. Then they built high walls and strong towers around Mount Zion, so that the Gentiles could not come in and trample and defile it again. Judas placed a detachment of soldiers there to guard the temple. He also fortified the town of Bezir, so that the people of Israel would have a fortress facing Idumea. So love this story. Love how they kicked ass. Love how they was diligent enough to tear down all the wicked idols that the Edomites brought in there and set up something new, And so, yeah, even to this day now, brothers, we still get together and celebrate the dedication of the temple together, eat chicken, whatever, give gifts. And, it'll be coming up here in the next couple months, Lord willing, we're here to fellowship with each other. But, yeah, this is a beautiful story of victory, so I wanted to read it. Lord willing, bros and sisters, y'all enjoyed following along. So with no further ado, I'm going to say, Call hello, Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shah, B'Hashem, Dash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Much peace, love, and salutations to y'all. Came out there pushing the word of Yahweh B'Hashem, Yahweh Shah, and sincerely and truly. Shalom.